89.3.
Habits. Bad ones are easy to form, harder to break. Ask my nails.
You bite your nails?
I have a bad habit of picking at it, so I get them done, and that keeps me from messing with it.
So you're spending money to break your habit.
Yeah, it's working a little bit, but Tova, I don't know why that is. When I say, okay, I'm not going to do it, I still find myself automatically, in a dull moment or something like, wait, I'm not supposed to do that. Slap myself, but slap my hand. But
use the rubber band, right?
Is that, yeah. But bad habits they're just so easy, aren't they?
They are. They are.
So you're going to help us with that today?
Sure.
Okay, that's what we have you here. Tova is from Wellspring Counseling in Miami, and we're going to find out about breaking bad and starting good ones.
Okay, so yesterday I went to my bad habit. That was a thrift store, and I filled up the cart, and then I just left it there. It felt fresh, refreshing. I was good. And then I just left it there. To me, that was kind of almost healing to a point. Okay, so how did that help my brain? We're talking habits and brain a little bit. How did that help my brain to do that?
Oh, you probably just had a nice reward. At least you got half of the pleasure of it. But
I didn't spend any money. That was pleasurable.
But I think it's important to talk about the brain because habits, we have different types of habits. We have habits of our body. So, your fingers learn how to touch your apps, right? And they memorize it. So you have habits of your body. You have habits of your thoughts. And then, we don't always think we're having habits of our thoughts. So we think everyone thinks like we do, but we can go down rabbit trails. So anytime we start thinking a certain thought, let's say you have the habit of assuming people are rejecting you. It's your first thought. You can have positive first thoughts of optimism, negative first thoughts, it's always going wrong, God doesn't like me, bad things happen, So those are actually habits. So habits of the thought, habits of the body, and habits of behaviors. Like we probably all brush our teeth without really spending much thought about it. So basically the forming of habits is like, we have synapses in our brain. And if you think, so when we're children, our synapses are firing all over the place. They're not connected. But by the time we're 3, they start connecting. And by the time we're 5, they have patterns. And so what happens is the loose synapse slow down. They use it or lose it. They kind of disappear. And then we have patterns. And those patterns become habits. And it's God's beautiful design to give us, to make it possible for us to have consistent paths so that we no longer have to think about it. When you learn to walk, you had as a little child to think about it. But now we all get up and walk, and while we're walking, we can talk with a friend. So God's simplifying our life as we learn things. So that's the core of habits in our brain.
And that's a good thing. So what you're saying is, again, we're wonderfully created, marvelously created. But then because of the sin nature, some things go awry in those synapses connections.
Right. We can have bad habits, sinful habits. We can have great habits. It's the way I picture it sometimes in the synapse is if you pictured a big piece of land like a knoll and heavy rains, which we've all seen on the news lately, then the water, it's wide as it rains, but it starts pooling into streams, and then those streams pool into rivers, and then the more they run, the deeper the groove. And that's the way our synapses are. So we get grooves in our brain that all the water runs into it. Trauma is like a flood. So you can get a habit just instantly, a habit of fear over a dog because you got bit by a dog or something, instantly in the flood of something, a traumatic event. But generally, you just have to repeat it over and over again, and then it becomes a river.
Okay, all right.
That was a lot of brain stuff. So
yeah, I'm just trying to think.
Helpful.
The river can mean. I think sometimes you get lazy habits, and when those synapses stop firing, and you just kind of lull yourself into these habits, and they become not a river, but just kind of lazy river almost, and you just kind of you're washing yourself down there without any thought or any conscious going on there. So let's talk about this. But we have these good habits. How do we create these? How do we break that then? The habit that was bad, or what I just said, lazy, I guess. How do we break that and become more positive or helpful in these habits?
Okay, so the bad news is you don't actually break habits. So the proverbial, once you learn to ride a bike, you can always learn to ride. You can always ride. Even if you've been driving a car for many years, you can just get on a bike. Your body has memorized that.
Oh.
So that it is a little bad news. So to create a new one, you actually intentionally have to create a different habit. So those things. So that's a
Okay.
problem, like with substance abuse, especially because you get this nice dopamine rush that rewards you for it. So you're even more likely to do it. But you really can't quit that easily. You have to replace it with something better.
So give us an example of that.
Okay, let's think about something simple. Let's take a thought habit. So I'm working, I'll tell on myself, but I'm working on not complaining. Okay, so I have some biblical mandates, and there's some good stories about grumbling, and Scripture says I should know that God gives me everything I need, right? So why am I complaining? Okay, so it's a little habit, but I realize I kind of do it. So I need to, first of all, am better off looking for what I want to do than what I want to stop. So research says if you focus on what you don't want, you actually are more likely to do it, interestingly.
Yeah.
So I have to say, okay, instead of complaining, I need to think about being grateful or focusing on the good or trusting God. So it's about choosing to work on that versus working on not complaining.
Okay.
So that's step one of a new habit.
So step one is don't focus on the bad habit
Correct.
at all.
At all.
Okay, that's so counterintuitive because that's what you think. Like I got to focus. And no, we just have to focus actually on something completely different, something more positive.
So that old habit of complaining is going to kind of stay there, but the less you use it, the more it kind of disintegrates, right, over time, generally. But if I focus on the new thing and intentionally work at it, so I'm trying to make a new river, I got to dig a little first. I got to make it work to go in that direction for a while. And, I can put Post-its on my, reminders. I can have accountability partners. I can track it, things like that are very intentional to start building a new habit.
I think in the sports world. So I'm thinking, okay, we just had the basketball tournament ended yesterday.
I heard you talk about that this morning.
The Gators won. So you have a player that is missing his shots, and the coach says your elbow's too low or whatever it is, right? And that's their habit. They've done that since they started playing basketball. But now they're in college, and their coach says if you were just to lift your elbow up 2 inches, your shot will go in, or just for instance. They have to think more about, okay, where's my elbow at this point? That's what you're saying, right? I'm
saying that, and then it's practice, practice, practice.
And it's the coach reminding you. It's all these things, right?
Correct. Practice, practice. But yeah, you're focusing on putting your elbow where it's supposed to be versus don't put it down, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said step one was kind of replacing it with something positive. Is there a step two?
Yeah, I think it's really about making the plan. And so the plan is I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it on these days. I'm going to practice. Part of the plan is how am I going to reward myself? Sometimes we shoot for the end, and we really need to reward ourselves along the way. I think you have to make a plan for failure. So sometimes we're like, so think of your New Year's resolution. So you're, I'm going to do it. You hit day 14 or 18, that's about where we usually fail. And you're like, oh, I couldn't do it. And so we quit instead of having an expectation that good habits are formed slowly. So rewarding yourself, I got 4 days into this, so I'm going to start again. I'm going to learn a lesson because I have a plan for failing. I expect to fail. And then I'm going to reward myself when I go 8 days instead of 4. And so it's like I'm going to be kind to myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But how long does it take to get from I don't have to think about that anymore to I've got this new habit? How?
Well, research out there says 30 days.
What do you say?
I think it's a lot longer.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound very long.
I think 90 is probably kind of a better thing. And then if you kind of relapse, remember your old habits are hanging around, and so you can start doing that again for weeks, and then you're kind of got to get back to it again. So I think we have to be really patient with ourselves. Oh, that's another thing too. If you judge yourself and are mad at yourself, you're more likely to, again, resort to the old. Whereas if you are kind and just say, yeah, I blew it, but I'm not going to quit quitting, I'm going to just try again. And the key is when you fail or whatever, relapse, whatever word you want to use, that you analyze it. What did instead of bad me, you say, what could I learn from that? What happened right before? What didn't work? And so you make a plan around what didn't work without that mean thing we do to ourselves.
Right. That's part of the thought habit, though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that sounds like giving ourselves grace and maybe
Right.
giving others grace.
Right.
Okay, well, one of the other things you say that is helpful for us when it comes to habit forming is maybe attaching it to something else.
Yes. So it's easier. So if somebody says, I always forget to take my pills in the morning, I got new pills the doctor gave me. So putting it next to your toothbrush, which you don't forget, is attaching it to something else that works. So morning routines, afternoon routines, exercise routines, a lot of those things, just attach it to something that's already easy. And then being kind to yourself, like, I can learn a habit. I do this, so I can add something to it. I think for me, for instance, I'm always losing things, and my husband just laughs because I spend a lot of time in my day hunting for things. He tries now to notice where I put it, so he can tell me when I'm like, where are my keys? So I've begun to try to really always put my purse in the exact same place, and now I have a habit. So I walk in the door. I'm always going to walk in the door. So what's my next thing? I'm going to have a connection of I walk in the door, my purse goes here, my keys go here, I mean, we all have these things. So
Okay.
you have to attach them.
But, okay, you walk in the door. Oh, no. I don't know if you have a dog or not. The dog just, tore up a pillow over there. And I usually put my purse here, but I didn't this time because I had to go correct the dog and take care of that mess, whatever happened over there. And next time I come to find my purse and it's not there. So how do I?
That's
what do
grace. Grace.
Okay.
To yourself, and then you have to hunt for a while. Not you. Your keys is what you're looking for.
Yes.
But it's just grace. And so where did I put it? And then you backtrack. So I walked in the door. Oh, the dog. And then you can find it. But just kindness to ourselves. But I think that intentional piece of creating a new habit, it's all about spending time planning it versus I need to do this. Bad me, I never do.
Yeah.
It makes such a difference, our inner dialogue and how we talk to ourselves. And I think we do that bad me, thinking that we're going to correct ourselves because of that. But it actually does the opposite is what I hear you saying.
Correct. You get what you focus on. You get more of whatever you focus on. So focus on what you want. It's like parenting. Focus on what you want, attend, praise what you want, and ignore the bad. And usually it'll extinguish. Not always. Sometimes you have to be more intentional, but.
All right. This leaves me with some work to do, Bridget. What do you think?
Well, Tova, you also have some help at Wellspring Counseling because I know we're talking about, kind of light habits, like where we put our purse and all these things, but there are deeper issues people are dealing with that they need to overcome. How does Wellspring come alongside people?
Well, we do counseling. We do programs. Our programs are trauma-focused mostly, so we're going to look at those deep floods that come and try to have corrective experience, try to have experiential things that we do that learn it in your body, not just in your head. So you want to move it from your head to your body. So experiential ways of learning things. In therapy, it's about figuring out how you got there. Lots of that thought habits come before your body habits that you change, like substance abuse. How did you get there? What are you medicating? That kind of thing. So we do the deeper work, not just where you put your purse, And so.
Although we need help with that too. But at Wellspring Counseling, we do have a link to them at ericandbrigitte.org. And I know, like you said, it's that trauma, but it's also for people of all ages.
All ages, children, couples, families, depression, anxiety, those things that affect us regularly. And we have, we have Spanish and English. We have people who have expertise in different things. So we really do see everything.
Excellent. Well, here is a new habit for you. Check out our podcast every day, and you can do that when you text the word LISTEN, 561-737-6035. So if you've missed any of this conversation or want to find out more about Wellspring Counseling Center, you can do that there. Text the word LISTEN, 561-737-6035.
Any last word of encouragement on starting a new habit that's healthy for us today?
Just pick one and start on one at a time.
Excellent. All right, we're going to get to news, traffic, weather, and sports here in just 5 minutes.
Did you